Don't be the workhorse providing a woman's resource. You want 50-50 balance if you're going to have a relationship, or if you're going to commit to a girl long term, or if you're going to bring her into your life. You don't want to just be the workhorse that's on the hamster wheel, that's on the work grind, that's just caught in the system, only serving as a resource for her, only serving as finances, only serving as assets, only serving as food and shelter. You don't just want to be the workhorse providing just the resource. You want more out of the relationship if that's what you choose to do. See, so a lot of guys, they don't understand the importance of having your stuff together, having resources, being sexually attractive. They don't understand like what that does to the mind of a woman, because it's not to say that like women are gold diggers for this. We're all gold diggers to a certain extent in terms of everybody going for their own money. Nobody's trying to be poor. Everybody wants to have like a decent life. Everyone wants to put food on their own table. So we're all affected by money, and our movements are affected by money to a certain extent. And it's natural with hypergamy for a girl to want a guy that can provide. She doesn't want to sleep outside on the concrete on the street. She wants to have a house, a bed. So there's just some basics to understand. Like there's no surprise why millionaires tend to get more women than homeless guys. It's just a fact. So understanding that, and understanding that about human nature and female nature, you need to understand what it means to have resources, what it means to provide, how you're going to be seen and how you're going to be evaluated due to those resources. You don't want to just be the workhorse that's just providing a resource. And this is the thing too, it's where if a woman can judge a man on what he provides, so say a woman looks at me and goes, okay, this is how much you make, this is what you can do for me, this is my level of attraction towards you. If she's able to do that and evaluate me like that, then I can do the same with my resources. Like if she can look at me now and think that I don't have enough resources or she can do better, that's perfectly fine. Have your opinion on that and do what you're going to do and live the life you want to live. But say in 10 years, I'll be 36, maybe I've built up resources to that point. I don't just owe anybody commitment now. I don't just owe anybody a bunch of resources or money or assets. I can do what I want with those resources. And that's the thing too with women and men. Women don't tend to share their pot of gold with men. It's usually the man that's providing, the man that's making the most money, and the man that is the provider figure. Now, women can say, oh, I'm strong and independent, I make my own money, or I make more than my man, and that happens. But in general, the man makes more than the woman. And even if the woman is independent and doing her own thing and makes six figures, women tend to date at their level or above. So yes, there's always the casual hookup or the pool guy or something like that that you can allude to. But in general, in terms of long-term or commitment or dating, the woman is going to go for at her level or above her level. She's not usually going to go below her level. So when it comes to these spiritual concepts of the divine masculine and the divine feminine, that plays a huge role in why the man tends to make more money, usually tends to be more dominant, and whereas the female, the feminine, tends to be more nurturing, more submissive. And so those are just the natural ways that relationships tend to work. So because of that, in general, the man is often going to be in that provider role. He's often going to be in that resource role. But with the way things are in the current economy, and working up towards things, a man might not have those resources for a little bit into his life. I mean, he might be in his 30s before he starts acquiring those resources. But now a woman in her 30s is not the guy in his 30s, so the timeline is a little bit off. So the guy, he's not obligated to just commit all of a sudden. The guy's not obligated to just share his resources with just anybody. He can do what he wants with it. He can keep it for himself. He can share it with charity. He can give it to his mom, whoever he wants to give it to, friends, invest. He can do what he wants to do with his resources. There's no obligation for him to just share his resources because of societal pressure or because, oh, that's what a real man would do. A real man would look to get married. A real man would look to provide. Because you see what happens with a lot of these divorces and marriages that don't work out and assets being taken. Who's to say that the man just doesn't want to keep his resources? Say I have resources right now, whether it's stocked up food and water somewhere in a house, or money in the bank, or investments, or residual income. Say I have a resource pool right now that if I brought a woman into my life, I could take care of the both of us for 10 years just on the resources I have in stock. Well, At 26, that means I have resources now. I would have it until 36 if I had 10 years of resources in stock if I take her into my life. What if I just choose to remain a bachelor and be single? I could spread that out 20 years, so I could be 46 and keep those resources. I'm not obligated to just share it with somebody. I'm not obligated to just give away half. And so if I do bring a woman into my life, it's got to be more than just, oh, her time's running out, or she's getting older, needs to find somebody before it's too late to have a kid, or like plan A didn't work, so I'm just plan B backup guy. There's no reason for that, especially when, like I said, if at my current stage, if she's able to look at me and determine what I can provide in my resources, as I'm building resources, as I need the time to do so, and my stock is rising, I don't just owe someone something later into life because, oh, now I'm a good option. Oh, now I can provide. Oh, now I have the resources. You don't want to be that workhorse. You don't want to just be on the wheel. You don't want to just be on the work grind, attached to some commitment that was just kind of a rush decision. Whether you got into a marriage without really thinking about it, or whether you had a kid without using protection, not really thinking about the ramifications of that, or just trusting that she's on birth control, or just trusting that she doesn't want a kid either, but then, oops, a couple weeks later, you don't want to be in these situations where you're just the resource provider. If you're going to bring someone into your life and share your pot of gold, share your resources, you want it genuine on both ends, the man and the woman side. So as a man, when in general, as the divine masculine versus the woman being the divine feminine, the man is generally going to be looked at in terms of what he does, his place in society, what he becomes as a man. Whereas a lot of times we evaluate women, and women just are like they're beautiful and they're feminine, and they get to be just like their true self. Women just get to be, where the man, he's judged in a way where he has to become who he is. The man has to develop into something. The man has to grow up. The man has to mature. The man has to put food on the table. He has to provide. It's like hunter-gatherer societies, and the men are out hunting, and the women are taking care of the home and gathering. And so that's just how it tends to play out usually. And people say, well, that's just gender roles. And yeah, it is gender roles, but there's a reason that men tend to gravitate towards certain roles and women tend to gravitate towards certain roles, just on biology and on spirituality, and on how just like having a penis is different than having a vagina, and that's different, and that affects the relationship. So when you start throwing these things in, like, oh, well, like, it's 2020, man, like, the women can make money too. They can make more money than their man. Yes, they can. They have every right to pursue whatever they want to do, pursue a career, pursue their own stuff. But biology is still there. Spirituality is still there. A woman that's making six figures tends to be around guys who also make six figures or above. Just the power balance gets thrown off a lot of times when she's making more and he doesn't meet up to her level of finances. So yes, there's always the there's always the exception. There's always the casual hookup. There's always the attractive pool guy. There's always the one night stand. There's always that. But when we're talking about sharing resources with someone, and what convinces people to actually share their resources with someone long term, it's generally going to be the man that's seen in that provider role, in that resource role. So as a man, you don't want to get stuck into being the work donkey. You don't want to get stuck into being the pack mule. You don't want to just be the workhorse with the sole purpose of providing her resource. You want to understand that this is a long-term game. Life out here is a marathon. If you share your resources too much without thinking of long-term, you could dry up due to somebody that comes into your life, and the second the resources aren't there, they just move on to somebody else, and you weren't even saving for the future. You weren't even thinking about yourself long-term. So now you not only do not have resources today, but you don't have it tomorrow because you gave it all away. So you got to be careful of that. You don't want to be in a position where just because you're gaining resources and you have more resources and people are treating you differently, like you're going up in the world, your stock is rising, you have more to offer, so everyone around you sees that you have more to offer. So you don't want to end up just being this this guy that worked for so many years, followed his goals, followed his dreams, worked really hard with nobody believing in him, worked from the bottom when he didn't have any resources, but now that he has some resources, you have all these people coming into your life that are just going to take the resources, and the second you get laid off, the second you switch jobs or the economy tanks or something happens, your resources dried up and they go and look for someone else who has more resources, has more to provide. So you got to be aware of that as a man. You don't want to just be the workhorse providing a woman's resource. You want to take all things into consideration.